Yeah, so Gia, the White House says that President Trump will be meeting with local law enforcement, and he'll also survey some of the damage from the recent protests there. The president also getting pushback as well from local leaders, some of them asking him not to come to Kenosha today. So this visit is also heating things up between Trump and presidential candidate Joe Biden. Trump is pushing law and order and blaming the rioting on left-wing anarchists. He also refused to condemn the actions of Kyle Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old from Illinois who was charged with killing two protesters last week in Kenosha.
He was trying to get away from them, I guess, it looks like, and he fell, and then they very violently attacked him.
Meanwhile, presidential candidate Joe Biden said that violence is wrong, period, and if Donald Trump can't say that, then he is unfit to be president.
Rioting is not protesting. Looting is not protesting. Setting fires is not protesting. None of this is protesting. It's lawlessness, plain and simple.
Kenosha's mayor says the timing of President Trump's visit is not good, and Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers also asking Trump to reconsider his visit to Kenosha today. Gia.
Yeah, a controversial visit for sure that will be on top of. Ellery, thank you. Chris?